Hispanic and I vote for Mr. Trump. We vote for Mr. Trump. Yes, Mr. Trump, we love you.
A few moments later.
Beyond betrayed. They used us. They actually, during the campaign, and I don't want to make this political, but during the campaign, the elected officials from the Republican Party, they actually told us that it was not going to touch the documented people.
Millions voted against their own interests, and that would be fine if they were happy with the outcome. But instead, they're constantly shocked by the consequences of the very choices they made.
I voted for him for lower grocery prices. He promised me cheaper prices on groceries. And that has not happened. Not only has that not happened, I am getting my food stamps taken. I am getting my cash assistance taken. I am getting my Section 8 taken. I am getting all my welfare governments taken. I did not ask for this. I would not have voted for him if I knew this was going to happen. So what do I do now? What do the people do now? The ones that regret their vote. What do we do? I can't go out and get a regular job. And it's not even about these families being separated from their loved ones. It's not about these 5 and 6 year olds getting their families taken away from them in the middle of a school day. It's not about any of that. It's about me and my food stamps and my cash assistance. Me. That I'm the only one that matters in this country. I am taking my life back.
This video had over 27,000 comments, and the top comment was, "You don't regret your vote. What you regret is the pain you wanted to inflict on others is now being turned on you." Sending concepts of thoughts and prayers, and it has 52,000 likes.
So federal employees who accepted Donald Trump's buyout are now finding out that the buyout is being terminated along with their jobs. It's, once again, it's almost like people kept trying to tell you not to trust anybody in this administration, especially the muskrat. He did the exact same thing. He did the exact same thing with the exact same email when he took over Twitter and turned it into X. He told people who work there they can accept a buyout, they will get paid for a few months, and then they will have time to find a new place to work. They did not come back, took his little buyout, immediately he cut them off. And a lot of those people who it happened to warned federal employees not to do it. Now, the vast majority said no, and now we're seeing layoffs happen in other ways. But those layoffs can be defended by Congress. They can be argued to be rescinded, and those people could potentially get their jobs back. The ones who accepted the buyout are asked out. What were you thinking? It is not just liberal propaganda that people are telling you not to trust Elon Musk, not to trust Donald Trump at a time like this. They are making decisions based off of what can put more money back into their pockets. They're not making decisions that will put money back into ours. Every single time they come to you and say, "Hey, why don't you trust me?" and you say yes, they screw you over. But people keep doing it. People keep falling for the BS. At some point, people need to realize that they are not going to change. So it is up to us to be smarter than the idiots running this government.
There's a lot of angry people in the United States of America tonight, particularly the farmers.
There are a lot of people who are very concerned out there who voted for this administration. But, you know, they wrote it all down in Project 2025. I guess we should have paid a little closer attention to what was in that. I read the agriculture section. I know it better than I probably should. But it was there. It was all in writing. We probably should have paid closer attention to it. I'll just say this. I think it's time for this administration to recognize who put them into office and also to understand that these people are hurting, and this only adds to the hurt that they're already dealing with.
Lawyers.
For American people to understand what's happening, their government, their watchdog agencies, the people who go to work every day to fight for them are being fired illegally in what is just a wholesale dismantling of entire agencies.
Now, you're a lawyer and you know firsthand that a lot of this is happening illegally. Explain what we're missing here and how this can happen if indeed what is happening is illegal.
It's a great question, Kira. Civil servants have a lot of protections under the law, and we're only supposed to be fired if our performance falls short on the job. So what has happened is that the administration has fired us. We call it layoffs sometimes, but that's not what it is. It's an illegal firing. And, it's just not credible to say that thousands of people were determined to fall short of expectations. I mean, literally every probationary employee at my agency was fired. It can't be that we all fell short.
So what can you do now? Can you do anything now? Are you going to do anything now?
Of course, my colleagues and I are fighting back. Our union is already in court. They've brought a couple of cases that I think we'll see action in the next few weeks. And, all I can say is that Elon Musk and the president picked the wrong bunch of lawyers to mess with.
Legal. They stole sensitive data. But they didn't realize that the books were already written, like the consequences for these actions of taking our Social Security data without permission to access. That comes with a per record fine. So I believe the lawyers are telling Elon that the U.S. government has the complete right under today's laws to take all of his wealth. That's right, 300 million times whatever the fine is probably going to make him have to sell every single share of stock he owns. And I am here for it. Take his money, send him to jail, put that money back into our treasury that he's probably already taken out so that we can remake a brand.
Keep telling y'all it. And let me just tell you, like one of my mutuals said on here, Jay, I think that's how you say her name. I'll tag her below. White people are almost mad, but they not mad enough yet. It's coming.
There is a particular farmer who has gone viral because he has been very vocal about how he may lose his farm. Let's take a listen.
We are possibly going to lose our farm if NRCS doesn't hold up their contract with us on the EQIP program. So the reason that they're not able to hold up the contract is our EQIP program, which is cost sharing on fences, waters, a well, and some seedings, was funded by the Inflation Reduction Act. Because of the executive orders, there's a pause or a freeze on the funding through the Inflation Reduction Act, and they're not able to pay out on the stuff that we completed or anything going forward. But the issue I have is I've already done a bunch of the work, already paid for the material, already paid for the labor, so I'm out all that cost, and I use my farm operating expenses in order to do those projects, because per contract, I knew that I was going to get cost sharing refunds on the stuff once completed, but now that it's completed, they're saying that they're unable to provide the funds because of the freeze on the Inflation Reduction Act funds. So please tag the representatives, please tag the senators. I need to get some ground on this. We need to help me and other farmers out. We've got to get this funding paid out. I don't care if they don't do it in the future. The problem is there was contracts in place, multiple farms made business decisions, and multiple farms are going to sink if we don't get traction on this and get those funds unfrozen.
He received a very lukewarm response with people saying he voted for this. He then came out with a follow-up video which was received very poorly.
Also, everybody says in the comments, Project 2025, didn't you read that? That's his platform. From my understanding, that wasn't his platform. That's not what he's running on. And I never thought I'd be on the political side of TikTok because it's definitely not something I'm interested in. I'm interested in the farm side of TikTok. And it really sucks that I can't get engaged with the farm side of TikTok. But politics, everybody gets worked up about it. But Project 2025, I did not read Project 2025 because from my understanding, that's not what he was running on. That's what I was told, and that's the information that I had. I don't have TV out here. I don't have news channels. I don't watch the news because every time you turn on the news, this news channel's saying, oh, this news channel's lying about this. The other news channel says, oh, this news channel's lying about this. I don't have time to filter through the book. I'm not going to figure out who's lying, who's not. You get on the internet and then everybody says, well, the left's lying, the right's lying. It's just a bunch of everybody's arguing with each other, and it's never the people against the politicians. It's the politicians against the politicians, and it's the people against the people. That's what I don't understand. We need to unite and be together, but then you're saying, oh, well, if you didn't vote for my party, we're not uniting with you. Well, that's the problem. That's the problem. That we have a whole lot of things that we agree on that we could actually solve problems with if we'd all just settle down and actually have conversations and talk about stuff rather than just hollering, oh, and find out. Okay, fine. I'm not even going to deal with you then because you're just immature at that point. If you actually want to have a solid conversation and talk about the issues and figure out resolutions to the issues and not just keep bringing up the issues, then I'm all for it. I'm not wasting my time with the immature just yelling, and it's just absolutely insane. But like I said, I appreciate the engagement.
He wants people to be understanding of his problems, but he's not listening to the reason why a lot of people simply do not care.
Food stamps were never about feeding the hungry. It was 100% to subsidize farmers. Yeah, I will never understand Republican farmers who are like, I'm voting to end these handouts. First of all, your farm takes a gajillion subsidies. As this young man, Skylar, is finding out, he's losing his $80,000 in subsidies from the government. But also, I used to work for WIC, and WIC really is an agricultural subsidy. It started that way, that's for sure. You ever wonder why moms on WIC get far more milk than any family can possibly consume? I know when we were on it, I was making yogurt and cheese out of it because it's just vast quantities of milk. Yeah, it's because it's really a subsidy for dairy farmers. You ever wonder why the main things you get on WIC are formula, cow's milk, cheese, cereals, wheat, corn, soybean, dairy farmers?
I might lose my farm because of the government.
I'm going to start this video off by saying that this video is not made for everybody. But this video is made for everybody to listen to understand that what I'm about to talk about is actual implications of what is happening right now in the office of Donald Trump and the administration that he's using, including Elon Musk, meddle in wherever Elon Musk is meddling in. This is a reminder that this is a billionaire and a fake millionaire meddling in our federal government and our funding. You understand this, right? I don't care who you are. If you are a billionaire, that means you are good at taking money out of everyone else's pockets and putting it in your own. And we're going to learn a lesson here because today we're going to talk about how old McMaga lost his farm. You all need to understand that we voted as Americans to have what's happening right now. And for a farmer to jump on his TikTok here and start complaining about the federal government not going through a contract with him without blaming Donald Trump himself, who cut the funding at the beginning of February, and we're going to talk about all of that here. All right, today we're talking about the Cattleman Family Farms, because the Cattleman Family Farms is a farm owner who is on government assistance, who is a proud Trump supporter, who obviously didn't read anything about Project 2025. He celebrates Donald Trump taking office, and within a month, he's already lost funding. You hear that? He has already lost funding on his farm because he is on government assistance. Something that he probably at one point in his life about how some people shouldn't be on government assistance and they should be raised up by their bootstraps and get working. Well, it sounds like you have a lot of work to do, my friend, because your farm's about to go under. That's right. So what is he talking about? He's complaining so much about this farming thing? Well, he's talking about the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. What was the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022? Joe Biden signed it in, so it must have been bad, yeah. Because it was signed into law by Joe Biden, and the tiebreaker came from Kamala Harris. She stood up there because not one Republican voted to support this bill. Not one Republican voted to sign the bill that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris tied that this farmer is now whining about. So sad. My farm's going under because Joe Biden gave me federal assistance. Anyway, what this did is it gave $19.5 billion to farming and agriculture to save the inflation that was happening to America. Do you hear that? Donald Trump doesn't care about your eggs and your prices of your eggs because he cut the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. Oh, that's right, because Joe Biden signed it into law, so it must have been so bad. Shut the f*** up. Jesus Christ. All right, wait. Trump loves America. He would never. Well, in February of 2025, the U.S. Department of Agriculture announced that a freeze on the federal funded and potential cuts to this program. Reuters actually named Skylar Holden in the article about the uncertainty of the future of the farmers. Democratic lawmakers are currently fighting because they don't want the rug pulled out from underneath our farmers because of this budget cut from Donald Powell. The Democrats? No, they would never. The Democrats hate America. Democrats never want to make America great. The freeze directly affects the IRA, which supports climate-smart agriculture, reducing sustainable farming habits from small and large farms across our country. Wow. You mean this bill actually did stuff for America and we didn't care about it that much? But wait, there's more. What are the negative effects of what this has happened so far? Well, trade wars have been going on, so retaliatory tariffs directly affect agricultural pockets, significantly dropping in exports. Lost soybean market. Did you guys know that China is the largest buyer of our soybean products? And because of Donald Trump and his little, I'm going to tariffs on everyone, and that's what we're going to do to make America great again, we have now lost soybean farming sales because of that, because China's like, we'll go somewhere else. Wow, we're that stupid. Anyway, bailouts. They supported the big farms like Purdue and all those ones that inject all those antibiotics that all of you guys say that RFK is going to stop us doing. Well, guess what? Here's a surprise for you all. The bailouts that Donald Trump gave actually only helped the farmers that use those antibiotics and didn't help the little farmers. All it did was f them. Anyway, immigration, we all know what's going on right now. There is a labor shortage because we want to go after all the hardworking non-Americans that came over here and they're trying to look for freedom and all that powerful stuff that we say that America's so great about. No, we care more about cracking down on the orange people that go out and pick the oranges in Florida as opposed to going for the actual people that are, going into our fucking government spending and going behind fucking lines when they don't have government clearance or they weren't voted in by the people to go affect with all of our money and our funding. How are you people so mad about immigrants and not mad about Elon Musk? I will never Oh, that's because it's a cult. All right, so we cracked down on the illegal immigrants. We have visa delays for people that are actually trying to get visas from the country so they can stay here to do the farming and the labor that we need them to do so we can actually get fruits and vegetables and all that is happening all around the agriculture community. But no, we're delaying those visas because we don't like immigrants. And last but not least, guys, I just wanted to let you guys know that there's a couple of jobs that he can now apply for, okay? You can always be a grifter on TikTok. There's a farmer on here. He's been doing this for a while. The family farm, what's their name there? The one that beats his girlfriend and does all that stuff and lives in motel rooms. He's a famous farming grifter. You could do that, okay? Well, we also going to have lots of jobs open as fruit pickers and laborers at the farms down the street that actually didn't lose their funding because they're probably Purdue and all that. You can go apply there because I'm sure they're going to need some help there. You can go work at McDonald's because that's always an option. That's what we tell everyone else to do, right? Go work at McDonald's. You can do Uber and Uber Eats. I'm not sure if you just have a tractor, if you actually have a car or not, but you can use that car to actually do something with it. Or you can run for office and make a change because people like you are going to yell about MAGA and how much you support it, but then you're going to stand on your TikTok and you're going to cry that you're losing funding. That's because you supported MAGA. We have a lot more of this coming down the pipeline right now that's going to hurt a lot more than just our agriculture and our farming. And all of you guys want to yell on your platforms about how he's going to go after egg prices and inflation. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, in the last 2 weeks here in Florida, egg prices have gone up $1.20. 2 weeks since February 1st. We have now gone up $1.20 in egg prices. What more do people have to tell you guys that it's not all about the Make America Great Again for him? It's not about you and I. It's all about him and his own and what power he can get. And you guys are giving it to him every day.
What a beautiful morning. So grateful that Trump got in office. Life is going to be so much easier again.
A few moments later.
So I just got the quote from the dentist in Mexico I've been looking to go see because no offense to my current dentist in the United States. I love him. He does a really great job. And I wish I could go to him. I just can't afford dental care in the United States.
The colonizer mentality is crazy. Like I've always said, they don't like Mexicans, but they like our food, they like our beaches, they like our services. But they don't like us. I thought the USA was the richest country in the world. I thought that the USA was the best country in the world. Why are you coming to Mexico? I thought Donald Trump was going to make you guys rich. I thought Donald Trump was going to put all this money in your pockets. I thought Mexico was dangerous. I thought Mexico was scary. I thought Mexico was filled with drugs and crime. The president, the one you voted for, doesn't like Mexico. So why the heck are you coming? Ask your president to pay for your dental care. If the USA is so great, then you have no need to come to Mexico. Just stay in the US. Get your dental care in the US. The best health care in the world, according to you guys. But anyways, guys, nothing new. Colonizers are gonna colonize.
I have hit the point that when I see a Harris Wall sign, it enrages me. Everything is so expensive. Our grocery bill is $500 a week. So when I see celebrities and elites with trust funds get on TV and tell me what's morally right, I'm infuriated. Because you tell me what's morally right about rationing bacon to your children. You tell me what's morally right about not being able to afford Christmas for your children. Under President Trump, my family was thriving.
So last year, you were crying because the cost of everything was too high. You had to ration bacon. You couldn't buy your kids socks. Your husband's job wasn't adding up to what it had used to add up to. And you guys were spending like $400 to $500 on groceries each week. And it just was untenable. And you would get so mad because people like Whoopi Goldberg would get on here and tell you it was the moral choice to vote for Kamala Harris. But I mean, in your words, like, who are they to tell you that when they're all rich elites with like trust funds and all that type of stuff? So how dare they tell you like what the moral choice is when you were suffering the economic consequences in your mind of Joe Biden? So you got the guy that you voted for, the literal elite Nepo baby, who's given the government over to a whole bunch of other elite Nepo babies who are now gutting the government and taking things out of many of the things that your family depends on in terms of services and supports within the government. And they're taking that to put money back into the money of the real elites, not Whoopi Goldberg, but into the pockets of actual billionaires, right? But suddenly the tears are gone. The tears have evaporated. Like I can't find them. Because see, nothing is cheaper anymore. It's not like you're having less of a time buying bacon, or easier time buying bacon now, but the tears are gone, which is very suspicious to me because it's almost as if a certain campaign had a big budget for social media influencers who looked a certain way and sounded a certain way and could cry on cue to relate to people that they wanted to cross over to vote against their own interests. And to say that it was about prices and all that, when actually at the end of the day, it was just good old-fashioned racism. And as long as he keeps delivering on racism, you guys will stay in the fold.
8 million to make mice transgender. Is this real life?
And you were allowed to vote. Is this real life? Now, this woman's talking about something in particular about transgender mice, but where did she get that from?
$8 million for making mice transgender. This is real.
All right, so this was another one of those, if Trump said it, it has to be true moments. But Trump actually misspoke here big time. Because what Trump should have said is scientists were making mice transgenic, not transgender. And as you can see here, transgenic mouse technology has revolutionized virtually all fields of biology and provided new genetic approaches to model many human diseases in a whole animal context. So as you can see here in the transgenic mouse model, scientists add human cells to mice so that when they introduce diseases and study them, these mice and their tissue react more like human tissue. And that's how we end up at a University of Cincinnati website where they're talking about their $8 million study to continue gene-environment interaction research. So yeah, Dunny, instead of stopping research where you say it was transgender mice, you actually stopped research that might help us figure out how diseases affect the human body. And you, Danielle, you bought the whole thing hook, line, and sinker just because it came out of Trump's mouth. Shame on you.
A state like Nebraska is considered a red state, and it's a state that receives a lot of government subsidies, and it also has a lot of farmers, yet they are being affected heavily.
I have a question for the rest of America. Does anyone even care about Nebraska? Does anyone even care?
What do you want? What the f do you want? Hypothetically, if we did care, what would that look like to you? Because based on the way you guys vote, you're getting exactly what you wanted. You quite literally are getting the exact thing that you voted for. The decision that these farmers made are leading them straight to the loss of farms they've had in their families for generations because they hate those illegals so much, you know? Wait, did you want them to go to work so that you could watch them be rounded up for your own perverse pleasures? You want them absent from work on your terms so you can have a little show? Otherwise, I don't know what the hell you're mad at. And I know you aren't asking for a handout. I know us caring about Nebraska isn't welfare. To save people from decisions they made themselves? Isn't that at the root of why you said... And girl, you do not have to tell me who you voted for, okay? And I'm almost certain you would still say I'd vote for him again. God helps those who help themselves. Okay.
There's a little bit of good news coming out of Nebraska. I mean, if you could call it good news. They have identified a way to cut their budget shortfall pretty much in half. Now, if you haven't been paying attention to the story that's happening in Nebraska, there's a lot of panic that the state is going to go bankrupt. And there's some saying it will happen in just the matter of a couple of months because they have a $400 million budget shortfall. There's a lot of different reasons for it. Let me tell you what they are. But a lot of it very much is self-inflicted wounds. And now they're kind of dancing around going, oh my God, what did we do? Nebraska is experiencing right now at a state level what we're all about to face at a federal level. So I think it's important to pay attention there because this is what happens when you give giveaways and subsidies and tax breaks to the wealthy and you do all of these things that in the moment feel right because they get you votes and they get you popularity and they get you all this shit. And then when you have to pay the bills, you realized you've f***ed yourself. And that's exactly what Nebraska has done. I think the number one reason that Nebraskans should be concerned is that they've lost their immigrant labor. Nebraska was one of those states that had there's a lot of farming, a lot of agriculture type businesses, and they use a lot of immigrant labor. Whether they're documented or not, does not matter. There were people who were not native Nebraskans who had moved there and were working there. Nebraskans, like a bunch of other states, voted for Trump, which told their immigrant population, we're not welcome here. Instead of waiting for the jackboot stormtroopers from ICE to come knock on their doors, the immigrants pieced out. We're going to go someplace where people will use our labor and will like us and will treat us with a little bit of dignity. So they probably hustled their asses to Colorado or California or someplace else where they could get work and they could be safer. So rumor has it that this was 60% of their labor force. And when you lose that much of your labor force, you've got no one to pick your wheat, you got no one to slaughter your cows, you're in big trouble. So that's the start of it. They're not making as much revenue. They're not supplying as much food into the food chain, which, by the way, screws all of us. Our food supply is going to be if this happens. So let's just say that. But they also did a lot of other things, right? They put in corporate tax breaks and they did all this other stuff. Now suddenly they don't have a pot to piss in. Their budget committee has gone back to work and they're trying to find places where they can find this money. And they've identified $165 million more in revenue that they can bring in. 65 million of it is from, well, let's just go ahead and raise the taxes on the corporations. Amazing how quickly the money pours in if you make everybody pay their fair share. But I digress. Anyway, they've also done some other things, cut some extra funding. They cut a major portion of funding to the University of Nebraska Medical Center, which is quite frightening for the people who work there and a lot of the research they're doing. University hospitals all across the nation are getting crushed right now because they're losing a lot of their funding. But one thing they've also decided to do was to take the cash out of their slush fund. Every state kind of has this emergency fund. And I get that they think, okay, this is an emergency. We got to use the slush fund. So they're putting their slush fund toward their budget deficit. I understand that. But what's happening is, in case you don't know, Nebraska is one of those, let's use the word socialist states, meaning they are one of those red states that gets more from the federal government than they put in. Okay, they get a ton of subsidies for their farmers. They get a ton of stuff. And sadly, there's a lot of people in Nebraska who are poor or even poverty level citizens. And they need government funding. They need things like Medicaid and SNAP benefits and those types of things. Well, when you've got the dojo, it's going, nope, cut it all off. We don't give a who starves. We don't care about poor people. We don't care about children. Cut it all off. What's happening is the federal government will start giving less to Nebraska. And Nebraska is going to be expected to pull herself up by her bootstraps. Not if they've raided their slush fund. If they don't have any money left in their slush fund, they can't help their hungry and poor citizens. So again, it's all self-inflicted wounds because this is how they voted, and they supported an administration that was going to slash. They supported an administration that said, no more brown people. They did this to themselves, and it's very hard to feel sorry for them, right? There's a lot of people on here that are like, bye-bye. But it's a major hit to our food supply. I took some notes. Let me just tell you. They are the third largest producer of corn. They're a big producer of soybeans. They are top 15 producer of wheat. And I don't know if you knew this, but Nebraska, number one in popcorn. They're the number one producer of popcorn. We stand to risk to lose our popcorn, people. But that's not even what I want to talk about. They are one of the top producers of beef. If you've not, there are some exceptional cattle ranchers in Nebraska, and they provide a huge portion of America's high quality beef, but also pork, poultry, and wait for it, eggs. You think they're expensive now? You shut down the state of Nebraska, that's a big hit to the egg industry. Now, the what would be the cherry on the top of the Fun and Find Out Sunday is that 43 days before the last election, Nebraska's state house made a Hail Mary to try to change their electoral college process. If you're not familiar, Nebraska has 5 electoral votes, but it's not a winner take all. 3 of the electoral college votes go to, however, those 3 congressional districts. So if 2 of those districts go blue, that's two electoral college to the Democrats and 1 to the Republicans. And then the other 2 are given to the person who wins, the party that wins the overall state. So if the Republicans win the total state, they would get that. So last year, the way it stood to be was that Donald Trump would probably get 4 electoral votes. Kamala Harris would get 1. 4 out of 5 isn't quite enough when you're a Trump-loving, conservative, middle America white man who happens to be in the Nebraska State House. They didn't even want the black lady to get even 1 vote. Oh, no. They tried to change 43 days before the election. They tried to change their electoral college process to a winner take all. And luckily it didn't pass. There was somebody in the state house that said, this is dumb, we're not doing it. So it was dead in the water. But my point being is that this state is led and probably is populated by people who were die-hard, rabid Trump supporters. People who will throw a Hail Mary at the last fucking minute because they wanted him to have an even bigger win. And now they're crying on TikTok because they might go bankrupt. If you're a blue dot in Nebraska, hang in there, maybe pack your bags, maybe go to Colorado. I'm so sorry this is happening to you, and I'm so sad it's going to fuck our food supply for a very long time. But you found and you find out.
Does anyone even care about Nebraska?
Do you care about Nebraska? Because I have a feeling you voted for this. Nebraskans don't even care about Nebraska. Let me ask you another question. Who exactly did you think were going to work in the fields and in the farms after all of the regular day laborers, people of color, are no longer there anymore? Who did you think was going to do it? Did you think that there was just this army of white workers ready to get into those farms and pick all the vegetables? Now people like you who voted for this to happen are upset that something's affecting you, because what people like you tend to really vote for, it's not the economy. It's because you want to express racism and bigotry, and he was the only way that you could do that. But now it's affecting you. All those farms are disappearing, including that 300-year-old farm. And you want to know why nobody's upset at that? It's because you guys did it to yourself. You'd rather vote to have your racism easily spread across the United States instead of thinking about yourself, because you always vote against your own interests, don't you? And isn't it just like you? You voted to hurt other people, but now when it's starting to hurt you, you want us to feel sympathetic for you. Get out of here.
Do I sense a little bit of voters' regret in the comments of this video? Can't imagine why. It seems totally straightforward and acceptable. If you haven't yet seen this post, don't go watch it. It's a crazy, unhinged, insane AI-generated video that is horrific.
In case you haven't seen the original video, here it is.
It's a crazy, unhinged, insane AI-generated video that is horrific. Everything that they have been posting on this account and the White House account has been rage bait, but this one just really takes it to a new level. And some of the Trump supporters on there just really feel in their feels about it. Please tell me that you've been hacked, because this is so not what we voted for. Yes, it literally is what you voted for. Trump, I voted for you to have a better economy, better laws, and to take care of our country. Stay focused on the future of our nation. Okay, maybe I should have voted for Kamala. I've always considered myself a strong Republican, but watching this made me think. The elites are out there sipping cocktails on land that was torn apart by war, while regular people like us struggle every day. Yeah, hi, welcome to existence. Where the have you been? I'm for Trump, but what is this shit? As a Trump supporter, horrible post. And they're all getting huge amounts of likes. Immediately no, and this isn't a funny troll either. I say this as someone who's eagerly voted for you 3 times. Y'all, to be surprised by things like this sends me into a rage oblivion.
So Florida is really beginning to take a nosedive. And that's not surprising, because states that are under Republican rule fare the worst across virtually every metric. And Florida, over the last few years, kind of stood out as an anomaly. They got to have bragging rights for a few years, especially by Ron DeSantis and you name it, that people are just leaving the woke state of California and moving to the unwoke state of Florida. So you had a lot of people moving to Florida who really just enjoyed being in community with other people who enjoyed being rage baited, who enjoyed watching Republican leadership dehumanize groups of marginalized people, where they could celebrate with their neighbors when laws were passed to dehumanize the marginalized. They just really wanted to be together in Florida. So Florida got to have bragging rights. But what happened, because it's under Republican policy, the home prices just skyrocketed, and people still moved there. They paid tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands more for the value of the house in Florida, because they so badly wanted to live there. And so what was happening under Republican policy? These hurricanes were hitting fast and furiously, worse than ever. And it was too woke to say it had anything to do with climate change. So under Republican policy, they did absolutely nothing about it. And at the same time, they had people like the Republican CFO taking money from big insurance companies, like he was investigated for it. And at the end of the day, under Republican policy, 13 insurance companies left the state of Florida, and it left all these homeowners having to make the decision. I paid so much for this house because I wanted to come and move here so that I could collectively hate. I can't afford the insurance premium. So they do not have insurance on their homes. They're playing Russian roulette, hoping this next hurricane doesn't take them out. Okay, so they get bragging rights, and Ron DeSantis gets to put this pretty paper around Florida. This is a great place to live. Meanwhile, they're tanking the public education system. They're tanking college education. We already know what happened with hurricanes. The real estate, thing is a problem. And then Trump becomes president. And then that's it. More Republican policies. Trump opens his mouth, and now Canada wants nothing to do with America, and they're the number one source of home buyership from a foreign citizen. Canada, they own 500,000 homes, more than 500,000 homes, and they have all collectively said, we want nothing to do with this little tiny king man who's just being a narcissistic middle school bully, wanting us to become the 51st state and putting us through this trauma of all these tariffs so he can walk around like he's really swinging something big in front of him. So all these houses now have just flooded the Florida market. There's so many houses for sale, and it happens so quickly under Republican policy. And now the value of the homes is plummeting. So all these people who move there to hate, they've got these high house payments because they bought like way over the value of the house, and all their neighbors are putting their houses up for sale for dirt cheap. They're like in a bad situation in Florida, and it's only going to get worse. But here's the best part. You've got Elon Musk with all the Doge. There's a lot of federal workers in Florida who are now unemployed. You've got a lot of farmers in Florida who had government contracts through U.S. aid that are now getting ready to lose their farms. For real, this is legit. And then you've got Republican governorship, Ron DeSantis, saying, we love Doge so much, we're making our own Florida Doge, and we're going to fire even more people from schools and universities and everywhere else. Yeah, it's Florida wrapped themselves up in really pretty paper to look like a lot of good things were going on there. But at the end of the day, Republican policies always tank the economy, the education system, and everything else. And now I just feel bad for Florida residents who did not vote for this. I'm really sorry for the rest of you.
But what is next for the United States? Many Trump voters may be regretting their choice, or maybe they're happy with their vote but not when they are personally affected. But regardless of anyone's regret, the choice has been made and the country is slowly destroying itself. The sad part is, it is not being destroyed by outside forces, but by its own people, and by its own politicians.
So I came across this post in the economic collapse subreddit, and I've already talked about the fact that Trump is just barreling us down into the Great Depression 2.0. He's trying to make the first Great Depression small, and we're going to have the biggest Great Depression, like a fantastic depression, and how he is being run by the tech bro billionaires that are, I don't know, wanting to buy up America for pennies on the dollar. So let's get into this man's post. He says, the U.S. economy is already dead. It just doesn't know it yet. He says, someone recommended this sum for a reposting of my little prediction of doom. Enjoy so far as you are able. He says, to be specific, the U.S. will go into acute stagflation inside of 4 months, which will then transition to a depression more severe than the 2008 crisis before the end of the year. And it's already unavoidable. We are seeing the building blocks of a disaster, the likes of which we haven't seen in generations, and it's a question of when, not if, it goes off the rails. So that is this person's prediction. First, there's massive inflationary pressure right now. Prices of imported goods have started to rise sharply because companies have to be prepared to weather tariff price spikes if they actually happen or not. International trade is no longer reliable because the administration flip-flops on trade agreements daily, making goods less available. Neighboring sources of vital construction materials are being antagonized while the country needs to rebuild after massive wildfires. Agricultural output will be extremely unreliable due to gestures broadly at everything, but mostly deporting farm workers, bird flu, and the draining of California agricultural reservoirs. Second, those same things can also trigger a recession, and there's more. The federal government is going to stop paying for things basically at random. 20% of the GDP is now unreliable. Crypto bro tech moguls are sniping at each other. Presidents are hawking meme coins. Law enforcement is in the hands of partisan impulse, and the SEC is about to be gutted. Fraud will run rampant. No one knows if that will juice or tank the stock market, but it scares people. Big tech, which contributes to around 10% of U.S. GDP directly, has aligned itself with the government. Around the world, but mostly in Europe, boycotts are forming. China, releasing an AI competitor, saw a 3% drop in the NASDAQ, with over $500 billion wiped off of the valuation of one top stock. They are fragile and particularly reliant on international suppliers like TSMC and ASML. It is entirely possible that the U.S. will default on its debt, either by whim of its new rulers or through gross incompetence of the hacker known as 4chan, or Big Balls, who has been put in charge of the Treasury payment system. Something nearly impossible in normal circumstances could be ordered by the president and be carried out before anyone realizes what has happened. And then the dollar is over. Unemployment will be off the charts. Tens of thousands of government workers are being illegally fired and contractors dumped and aiming at up to 1 million unemployed, but that's just the start. Right now, 30,000 are confirmed, but OPM has mandated firing of 200,000 probationary employees hired within just the last year to be let go by September. And that's not even counting contractors. Federal agencies rely heavily on contract employees, so we can expect 2 to 3 contractors to lose their income per federal employee loss, which is scary because think of all these people that won't be able to pay their bills. That's the direct workers, but there's much more. When something like HUD is dismantled by cutting 84% of the around 8,000 workers, that just means it simply cannot operate. HUD administers programs like LIHTC and JPIP, which supports over 90,000 jobs annually, primarily small businesses. With U.S. aid shut down by cutting 14,000 employees, the spending stops. Billions of dollars of that spending went to farms in the Midwest that have lost their contracts, their livelihoods. 80% of that $60 billion U.S. aid budget went to U.S. firms. It was an indirect subsidy that secured hundreds of thousands of jobs. Then there's the hiring freezes all over, not just in the government, but the affected programs like university-administered medical research. There's maybe 24 people authorized to actually administer and pay out the $30 billion per year that the IRA distributes. Fire them and all that just goes away. It's authorized, the money is there, it just doesn't get spent. That's a lot of jobs. This isn't even taken into account the people losing their jobs to tariffs and further trade war insanity. The ripple effects here are going to greatly disproportional to the first order numbers. Inflation is manageable. A recession is manageable. High unemployment is manageable. A failed harvest is manageable. A trade deal breaking up is manageable. A constitutional crisis is manageable. A supply chain disruption is manageable. A war is manageable. A reduction in government spending is manageable. A breakup of an alliance is manageable, but not all at once. Oh my goodness, just saying that paragraph right there and all of the things that we are running smack dab into, that we are in the midst of, is a whole mess. Inflation, a recession, high employment, failed harvest, trade deal breaking up, constitutional crisis, supply chain disruption, bird flu, mass deportation, a war, a couple of wars, threat of war, a reduction in government spending, and a breakup of an alliance. Oh my gosh. We're in the midst of this and it's barely March. This is a mess. If these trends all manage to hit, which they almost certainly will, we will be seeing a collapse of employment and industry combined with rising prices. Classic 80s style stagflation. The inflation will be transitory. The prices will probably only go up initially as the tariffs are threatened, then imposed, and trade starts to fail. After a short while of stockpiles depleting, prices might go up a little more, but it will basically reach a new normal at a higher price point. Agriculture will recover, etc. Still, it's a good year or two of suck. In the meantime, that inflation will paralyze the Fed. They'll want to lower rates to counter the recession, but bond markets will rebel because of the inflation. QE will be a possible response, but would also be seen as irresponsible with room to cut being available and inflation already at a high point. Yay. With the regime being too redacted, or I think stupid, to respond to the self-inflicted damage, things will turn nasty. With most adults in the room purged outright or sidelined, the recession will quickly transition to a debt deflation spiral. And somewhere along the way, the massive bubble in asset prices is going to pop, and we'll see the third Minsky moment of the past century. That's when the Great Depression starts, folks. Yay. Some believe that the regime's economic thinkers, Besant, Lutnig, Moran, Navarro, have explicitly planned to crush the economy as soon as possible so they can say it was Biden's economy that crashed. This would let them both profit off the collapse and allow the president to swoop in and rescue the country. But be it malice or gross incompetence, such a rescue is not possible. Roadblocks to recovery. The investment needed to reshore and rebuild the manufacturing capacity to compensate for supply that is being cut off internationally will not happen because expected returns are impossible to predict and spending is already cratering. Even if new factories are built, which would take years to be profitable, modern manufacturing is hyper-productive. It creates lots of product but almost no jobs. A few engineers and maintenance people can do the work of hundreds of manual laborers. There's no way to absorb the massive unemployment that's coming, and a few able to afford the products. The last time the U.S. was in stagflation was in the 1970s. It was ended with Volcker's hammer. Paul Volcker, the head of the Fed, raised interest rates to 20%. This caused a severe recession, which wrecked the economy and allowed a reset. The current leadership would not allow that. The president is pushing hard for interest rate cuts, and a head-on collision between the Federal Reserve and the office of the president will be intensely destructive to market confidence. Counteracting the collapsing stock market will require recapitalization by the Fed of various institutions that the regime does not like, and which its main economists would actively seek to prevent. By the time a healthy correction had turned into a complete slaughter, the Fed will be powerless. Recovery from any of these would be a difficult long-term problem, maybe a decade or more. But the Doge wrecking ball is preventing anyone from even trying to recover or even maintain anything. They're gutting the federal government, firing anyone with the kind of institutional knowledge needed to staunch the bleeding or turn around a decline. At best, there's going to be a survival situation where they manage to salvage some of the nation's resources under their control. The modern world is filled with complexity that requires the administrative state. Despite claims to the contrary, it is not being made efficient. It is being systematically destroyed. The theory, such as it is that all government spending is inefficient and crowds out private enterprise. So if you get rid of government, private enterprise will flourish. What actually happens is that aggregate demand plummets and the GDP gets wrecked. That's how when Greece cut 30% of government spending, it also lost 30% of its GDP. It hasn't recovered since 2010, and the U.S. is now doing that to itself. If I'm right, we'll see the first major shock come on March 7th when the February unemployment numbers come in. That won't be the worst of it because there's a lot of inertia in the economy. It's like a big oil tanker. It doesn't just change course on a dime, but someone decided to put a great big iceberg right in its path, and I'm betting that it will bring it to a stop real fast. Wild card in the mix. An upcoming bird flu epidemic which has already jumped to cattle and cats with high mortality rate. But measles might get there first. And we have incompetent leaders that are ill-equipped to handle these issues right here. All right, it says the FBI and CIA are being actively purged, leaving the country open to terrorist attacks. Yay, great. Previously secure federal IT has been breached, creating breathtaking vulnerabilities in key systems. There is a cult of techno-feudalists who want the United States to collapse into sovereign crypto bro kingdoms, and both Musk and Thiel are part of it. Yep. It is possible the regime is pushing for civil resistance to reach the level where they can declare martial law, which could lead to a secession of blue states and/or outright civil war. None of these are even necessary for collapse, but they might speed up what I believe is already inevitable. So, good news, everybody. There will be no Trump third term, and the United States won't be joining a new axis of evil. It will barely survive the coming year. This will take the world economy with it. Brace yourselves. So that is what this person is predicting, and a lot of these things we can already see. He just put it all together and put some bullet points behind it and said that all of this is culminating and it's going to collapse. And I can already see it starting to crumble. I don't know how people think that we're going to have a big, beautiful economy if people don't have jobs. How are people going to take trips for spring break and summer vacations if they don't have jobs, or their job insecure, or their housing insecure? We can already see this coming. So yes, like this person says, brace yourself. It's inevitable. Yeah.